Hey everybody, welcome to Watches with Dennis, and I am back with the Saturday live stream with absolutely no topic, no topic planned. So, but I did want to go ahead and do it. Just simple background stuff. The Normally I prep the show as late as the day before. I might do the research the day of, but I usually have the topic picked by the day before. But since yesterday was my birthday, I didn't do any work. And so it's like, okay, well, I don't have a topic. So I just threw a thumbnail together and figured we could do sort of a Q&A or just a generalized conversation about watches. I didn't get any watch gifts. Well, one friend of mine, she got me a watch holder. I didn't have any of the, I have one, I think that came with a watch. It's a single one. So I finally have one that can actually carry a couple. I don't normally bring more than two watches on a trip. I usually just do one because I didn't have a convenient holder. So I got that, but that was it in terms of watches gift wise. Now, I was planning to wear a swatch today. I'm actually wearing my Moser Pioneer, which I've had for a couple of years now. But I bought a red swatch, a literal swatch, not Swatch Group swatch, but swatch from Joma Shop because I used to have a red dial watch. I had a Kano, Orient Kano, and it was too big. Like it didn't overhang, but I didn't like how big it was on me. So I sold that, and I haven't had a red dial watch since. But I still like red dial watches, and so I had never owned a Swatch watch, and I thought I looked, and they had a few red ones, and this model is one from I think it's one that is originally just sold out of the Hong Kong boutique. So anyway, I got it, and the band has like logos and stuff on it. I don't really care about the band, but one of the print jobs on it, like one of the labels on it, has like a little scratch in it or something, which as cheap as the watch is, because these are like under $100, even before Joma Shop pricing, they're under $100. So I don't really care, but I reported it in. So I'm not wearing it in case they ask me to return it. What I asked for is a new band, or what I'm fishing for is, hey, if they want to give me like a $5 or $10 discount or something, I'll see what I can get. But otherwise, I'll plan to keep it and wear it. But the little logo part, I don't think it was damaged in the box. I think it may have come from Swatch that way or in their warehouse or whatever. But I'd never seen this packaging before. I've been to a Swatch store before, but I'd never, like, this is all open and exposed. There's no protection on it. It's interesting, and I don't know ultimately in terms of doing a review or whatever, but it's fascinating what they do to save money on these. And I'm sure a number of you watching probably have had a Swatch before, but since I have not, I was like, I didn't know. I've looked at them in the store in Dallas, but like I never noticed that the buckle on the straps is plastic, and it's very fascinating what they do to keep that pricing down. And I had known this, but holy cow, does that thing tick loud? I think I've heard Timex's tick loud too. I have had Timex before, but it's been years. But yes, it is like I can hear it from here on my desk. It's so loud. So just one of those interesting things. I did fish for a watch but I didn't plan that to be around my birthday. It came a couple of days ago simply because I had ordered it in early October when I finally realized that the sizing on that watch wasn't going to be an issue. I'd initially dismissed it because it was 41 millimeter diameter, but the lug to lug is very reasonable. I was hoping to finally get that Rolex Submariner. I thought this will be my new strategy. I reached out because the last time I had asked a few months ago, they asked me if I had any milestones coming up. So I mentioned my birthday in October. So I reminded them and gave them the date this time. But it was just of the watch division. Like the person I work with isn't the watch department. So anyway, no, as usual, no. I noted though, because Collectibles did get the call for his Rolex. So congratulations. I am glad that you get to finally get what model or make of a model was it that you were after? Because you may have mentioned it before, but I do not remember. And Kevin, good morning to you. Hope things are going well for you this weekend. Yeah, I have been wanting let's see. I don't know what, in terms of I don't think much on the list. I first went in and articulated interest and continued to push over 2 years ago. Um, Back in like May of 20, what would that have been? 23, 22, 23. I think it's 23. Anyway, it's been a couple of years. No date sub. That's the only one I've asked for. I've thought about maybe one of the new Oyster Perpetuals, but I don't really want 3 Rolex watches. So I think the no date will be the end of it. I've thought about just dropping off of the list, quite frankly, or just telling them, it's been too long. There's another dealer in the area I could work more with, but they're even further away. And they have been more blatant about wanting you to buy stuff like non-Rolex stuff, which, hey, it's their business. They can play the game in whatever way they want. Um, but it was very off-putting when they were kind of like, hey, if you buy this Omega, we could probably make that sub happen. And I'm like, I don't want that Omega that much. Sorry. Sorry. Especially when I think about how much I would save on that Omega buying gray. I probably would have saved more buying the Rolex gray at the same time, and it probably been a wash. So one of those interesting things. But Collectible says got the Starbucks. Oh, okay. 3-month wait. That's very nice. Yeah, that's the left-handed drive watch, right? The one with a crown on the left. I know a lot of people really like that, especially, unsurprisingly, left-handed people. I think it's an attractive watch, but I would want the crown on the right-hand side myself. But there are plenty of other options that do have the traditional crown configuration. So I am not hurting for choice. I would be spoiled for options to explore. So anyway, that's basically all I can think of that's happened recently of note that I can throw out there. So in terms of a topic, I've seen tariff discussions. We've kind of touched on them only in the sense when they impact watches. Obviously, this is a watch channel, but I guess I was too busy yesterday. I had CPR recertification and all of that, so I was pretty busy. So I did not see until this morning that the market had dropped some because of a renewed U.S. threat to increase the tariffs on China. Now, it's been very interesting because Switzerland, which of course manufactures a lot of watches, or at least a lot of the movements of the watches that we talk about on this channel, is under a pretty high tariff. And I've seen a number of collectors, including perhaps some of you, that have been steered towards other manufacturing countries because the tariffs are less severe. So Japan, for example, I know a lot of people had commented, rightly or wrongly, on Federico's channel. He had a update. This was over a month ago, where he had noted a renewed appreciation for Japanese watches. And some people in the comments took it very cynically and said, well, I don't know if you actually appreciate Japanese watches more now, or you just appreciate that the tariff makes them a lot more affordable for you to, I guess, I don't know, because he's a secondhand dealer, so I don't know how much the tariffs would particularly impact him. But it was on top of mind for people for obvious reasons. Like, I've seen discussions like on Watch Crunch. There have been other YouTube channels that have explored this concept with people about, hey, like, are we considering German watches now? Are we looking more at the Grand Seikos and Cradors of the world in order to fill the void because no one wants to pay a 39% tariff? And of course, on the microbrand side, when the tariff stuff happened to Switzerland, in many instances, it didn't mean anything. In fact, some people thought, and it's not bad speculation, that people would actually steer towards purchasing the microbrands, because a lot of them are using Japanese movements or are using Chinese movements. And so the thought was, well, hey, they're not in as bad of especially the Japanese movements aren't in as bad of a tariff state. However, we know a lot of the affordable microbrands are using Chinese movements. I think at least one I know, maybe both of my Mr. Jones watches, for example, are driven by Chinese movements. My Jump Hour Ricochet definitely is. And now, if there's going to be more tariffs on China, that obviously is going to put pressure on a space that will have more difficulty absorbing. We've seen a number of the bigger brands, I'm thinking like the Christopher Wards and stuff, that aren't micro brands, going and doing, I'm going to say antics. I don't mean it in a negative way, but they've engaged in antics to better reduce the impact of the tariff, essentially by shifting how the businesses structure and import and operate. They're able to make sure that the watch is coming in at the wholesale rate, and so they're able to only have to pay the tariff on the wholesale rate, versus like if it's a direct order setup where it's going to the end customer, the retail price is like the price paid at the import, and that hits the customer more. So if you're able to bring it in as the manufacturer at the wholesale and then sell it stateside, anyway, long story short, there are some ways you can reduce the tariffs because you reduce the value of the item coming in. So some of the bigger brands are doing that. Some have just outright just upped their amounts. We know a lot of the big Rolex did not, but we know Omega did this, as did a number of other big Swiss brands. But with this pressure, possible pressure, because again, a threat of a tariff is not a tariff on China. Again, I don't know. I I feel like the watch just interest in watches lately feels super depressed, and I don't just mean that this is a lower live stream count than I normally have. I didn't name any topics to attract people to this one today. I expected it to be lighter and shorter because I'm very lazy and living on carrot cake right now. So the what I think though is, I mean, just across the board, like bluntly, my analytics this year are terrible. I might actually have worse analytics this year than I did last year, which every year had been an improvement, but there's the views are not there on now. Maybe I'm just picking topics people don't like, but it's way down. Growth of the channel is way down, and my personality will only let a channel go so far, but the but I suspect because I've seen it with other channels too. I think it's just people are just not excited about watches right now because it just feels like you're throwing away money to try and get a lot of them. So where there are options, like again, okay, Rolex, well, Rolex already raised their price twice this year. So that they didn't raise it again is great. But I mean, the Rolex no date sub was $9,100 last year. It started this year at 9,200. It's 9,500 now. And that's tariff. There's no gold in that. There's nothing else for them to really, get concerned about. The price of gold isn't doing dress watches any favors. Not that they were in a great place to begin with, anyway. But it just feels like no one really knows a solution, and no one wants to. Well, the solution would be for the tariffs to go away, but the watch manufacturers are already in a. I think a lot of the bigger ones, the luxury ones, are in a tight boat here because they've been doing this strategy ever since maybe just before the pandemic, but definitely during the pandemic of just sort of gouging with the pricing. We saw this in pinball a little bit as well, in terms of another hobby where some of the companies really spiked their prices during the pandemic and they never brought them back down because no one ever brings anything back down. And they've held prices since in pinball because one of the brands in particular overshot by thousands, like thousands of dollars a machine overshot. And so they've had to hold their pricing because everyone thinks they're too much money until the inflation finally gets things caught up so that it feels like things are back in balance. With watches, we're not seeing that by and large. Like Richemont, Swatch Group, they're not doing that strategy. The prices on Speedmasters and Seamasters is just bluntly, I feel it's stupid. MSRP is stupid on those right now. No way are they worth that amount. But I think that the business arms of these companies don't know what else to do. Sales are falling, the tariffs are driving more people out, and so they do the same strategy they did to grow their profit margins in the first place, which is we'll sell to fewer people at more money. The problem is they didn't put any new R&D or interesting like a lot of them, not all. This is I'm painting a broad strokes here, but a lot of them just JLC is my favorite example because I love the reversal and I love the movement in the reversal, but it is an old movement. It's not an interesting movement. It's not an impressive movement. And the R&D recoup on that movement should have been resolved decades ago. I'm sure it has been, but the same horse, the same engine in their watches today was the same engine they had 20 years ago, but somehow the watch price is more than doubled. And it's a stainless steel watch. So the metal didn't double. So we're not stupid. Like it's very obvious if you look at any of the trend line on it that there's it's frustrating. So I just feel like watches right now feel really down. I feel like some of that I see as a content creator because it seems the consumption of the content is down, and I think that's when people feel like they can't buy anything that they want. Why consume? Especially if you're covering like new watches. Who cares about the new watches? They're too expensive. Now, once they hit gray, and once the people that are okay absorbing those prices buy them and sell them secondhand, I think you'll see. I'm sure there's still movement there. We've seen some used pricing go up this year. Depends on the quarter, but we've seen some used pricing improve to a degree on some of the watches. So there's still a market. I'm just saying that it looks like the interest in there is down. And I don't just mean down from like the pandemic high. That was not going to be sustainable. But when people were at home, this just became a hobby for a lot of people that have since abandoned it because they can travel again. But it just feels like there's a malaise. That maybe be the word I would use. There's just a general malaise on the new watches where it just feels like they're too expensive. They're not innovative enough for the pricing. If one of those things gave, I think a lot more people might be excited, but it's doesn't the companies. I don't think they feel they can pull it off. I think they don't want to do a major R&D investment, or they may have one underway and it's just not ready yet. Like Omega might be working on new coaxial movements that are slimmer with much more significant power reserves, but they ain't ready yet. So what we see is ridiculous prices on bronze gold models that are near on the price of 18 karat gold models from other companies, and it's like I don't know. They look nice, but I don't know what they're doing. It feels like the old that joke that the blog to watch podcast likes to do about like guess the price of the Seiko and guess the price of the Grand Seiko. Now it feels like other brands. The only thing I can tell you that will make you successful in such a game is make sure you guess more than whatever the last one that came out was, because the price always goes up. But it's a very odd time. Greetings, Tuna. Welcome to the live stream, and thank you for being a 99-cent club member. You still have an interest in watches, and we appreciate it. Tuna says, I reckon it will be the more accessible brands like Tissot, Raymond Weil, Maurice Lacroix that will be the most screwed. Yes and no. I mean, just in general, or like Chinese tariff wise, they wouldn't be, obviously, because their movements classify a lot of the watches being Swiss made. Like I'm thinking Tissot. I don't know the other brands that well, though. I think Raymond Weil is also Swiss. Though if a brand like Tissot's prices gets jacked up too high, it could alienate people out of the brand, obviously. Now, Swatch Group's a little weird, right? They're squirrely because they more stringently, I feel, than Richemont and LVMH. They really try and have this ladder, right? And there are a few things that kind of feel like they're on the same rung. Like, does Mito and Tissot feel like they're on the same rung? I feel like they are. But it's so if if Tissot moves up more and Mito holds, they could make space there. I don't think that I don't think this is a hot take. I'll call it a lukewarm take. Here's a Dennis lukewarm take. I don't think that Swatch Group's ladder method actually does them any favors. I think the Richemont LVMH style, where there can be multiple brands that basically exist in the same price bracket within the conglomerate, is just fine because the design language is different. Do we really have to make sure that Breguet stays at the top and Glasuta Original is going to be a little bit lower than that, but above Omega's baseline stuff, and Omega's baseline stuff needs to be ahead of Longines baseline stuff? I mean, there's going to be a degree of stratification anyway, but Certina, Mito, Tissot, and Hamilton, could they not all play in the same space? Maybe they are playing in the space. I don't know. But it feels like they have rules where, especially those on the lower rungs, aren't allowed to reach too high. Like Omega's allowed, because it's Omega. Omega's allowed to have halo pieces all the time. As long as their baseline watch is like under $10,000, they're allowed to have halo pieces. And then Geo is allowed to do some halo stuff as long as most of their watches fall between 10 and 20,000. But I'm not like, of all the conglomerates, like Swatch is in the worst position, the worst position of all. My understanding is like the significant Hayek stakeholders are in conflict with a lot of the more powerful shareholders about the direction of the company. The Hayeks want to still lean into the affordability. They want things like this. They want Swatch watches and stuff to be a big part of the portfolio. And the investors, and I'm not going to say the Hayeks are wrong, but I feel like the investors are relying more on what they have seen be successful with the other conglomerates, and they want to do let's make fewer watches that are just more expensive, and let's sell. It's easier to sell to rich people and just sell fewer watches than it is to try and make good investment returns by selling to lots and lots of people, because they don't have a good solution to the competition from Apple, Garmin, and all the other smartwatch manufacturers. Tuna does clarify he means the 39%. Okay. Yes. Okay. So in that context, back to his comment. Yes, I do think I'm torn a little bit. Because the people that are buying the Raymond Vials and the Tissots are more price sensitive than the people who are buying the Omegas and the Longines. I think you're right in that regard. However, we do have to remember that like 39% on a watch that's like $500 isn't honestly all that much additional money, whereas 39% on a $5,000 watch is getting a lot more significant. So in terms of the ability, it's funny. So I think that the buyers of those brands are more price sensitive, but they also are actually going to see lower raw increase simply because the watches are more affordable. But so I think it will be hard for me to say that necessarily they'll be the most screwed, but I think the perception goes a long way. And so it comes down to whether they can mask and absorb the tariff. Again, absorbing the tariff pricing is easier for the companies on a when it's a cheaper watch. So they might be able to mask that more. But I think you're right in the sense that the price sensitivity of the buyer, like they're going to be more like 39% peace out. I'm not even discussing getting a watch right now. Whereas other people that might have been looking at an Omega Speedmaster might go ahead and say, well, I mean, I already saved up. I really want it. It's a treat. It's a grail piece. There's a lot more driving behind that. But then again, those same people might go, you know what? Used watch is not actually. There are some people who are just really scared of used watches, which I understand. Like when I got my Rolex Explorer 2, and I didn't know anything about watches, and this was in the mid 2000s. Um, I was like super paranoid, even though I bought it I bought it in a jeweler. They're still in business in Kansas City. Bought it in a jeweler, but it was secondhand, and I was super paranoid about it being a fake. That I even took it to a watchmaker to try and get. They didn't know how to take the band off. One of them thought it maybe was fake, which got me nervous. I took it to like one of those watch band places at the mall to have them remove the. I actually had the box of papers. I had them remove the bracelet so I could confirm the serial numbers matched the documentation. And so ultimately, years and years later, I finally Rolex serviced to that watch, and there was no issue. So yes, it was a legitimate, Explorer. Again, I never really thought, hey, it's an Explorer 2. Nobody cares about cloning an Explorer 2. Back then, nobody wanted them. So, but anyway, I was nervous about it, but it was so much cheaper to buy used back then that that's how I could justify it. It was my first. I don't know if I told the story about why I got the Explorer 2. It was my reward or present to me for the very first. It wasn't a promotion. It was I got additional pay. All right, here the story. I worked for a nonprofit, and we had a lawyer, and the lawyer was also an insurance agent, and we had this plan. The association had this plan to set up essentially a model where we would bring in people with an insurer to provide health insurance to government employees, and this was going to be like think of it as a self-funded pool, but using multiple governments. And so the idea was to try and set that up, but they needed someone to facilitate the funding transfer. And in this state, it required an insurance agent to basically be a pass through to share the commission give the commission to the association. So the lawyer was supposed to do that because this lawyer had a background in property casualty insurance, but he quit. He didn't like working for us, so he left. And this was supposed to go operational like in 2 months. And so I became an insurance agent. I have no interest in insurance. I never sold insurance. I have long since that license lapsed. But I went and I self-studied, and I went and took the test, and I got my license, and I got a pay raise for doing that for them. And I spent more than that entire the first year of that pay raise bought that Rolex. And that's why I bought it. And that's why I still have it. So it's sort of that first instance of where I went and just something completely unrelated to what I was working on, and I just a demonstration that that I could do it, that I could just will myself to learn a new field and pick it up enough to rapidly just go and pass something and get certified, and then it never made the organization any money. So anyway, the story is, reality comes crashing down. But I did my part. That was my job to sell it. My job was just to facilitate it. So that was sort of the concept as to why I ended up with it. But I didn't go to buy a new one. You easily could have, but it was cheaper to go get used back then. So my point, back to this huge rambling start of the story, is I think a lot of people, if the pricing is high enough, will be like how I was and say, you know what, I do really want an Omega Speedmaster. And especially they can go and look at a used one in person, and they know it's not all scratched up and it's not over polished, or they don't care if it's over polished. I mean, most of them probably aren't over polished, quite frankly. You're not going vintage. they'll be like, or there are a few scratches and they see them and they're like, you know what? I was going to scratch it anyway. Why not save a few $1,000s and not have to deal with the last 5 years of price hikes? In fact, this is cheaper than a new one from 5 years ago would have ever been. So, there's that. And I think some people think the used prices are going to have the tariffs baked in eventually. I do not think so. I don't. Not long term, because that's lost value. It's like buying a watch. Some places I'll buy a watch from and they'll charge me the use tax, which is essentially the sales tax for the state of Kansas, to send it to me. Other brands, because of how the Nexus laws work, they don't have to. When I sell a watch, nobody cares what my sales tax rate was. I don't get my sales tax back. The value is the value of the watch, not with additional taxes. And all the tariff is an additional tax. So I just don't see that being retained as value in a used watch. And if it was, the moment those tariffs go away, and they will go away eventually, it evaporates. So that's why I think if anything was going to thrive right now, it would be the secondhand market. I just don't think it's thriving as much as some of them might be trying to suggest it is, because I just feel like this general malaise exists on watches. MCART, welcome to the live stream. Sorry, it took me a bit to get, but I was doing my rambly insurance story. Just great. Just grateful what I have for about 13 years collecting and just giving my watches regular servicing and traveling with my GMT and divers. I actually have picked up more watches than I thought I might this year. So I got rid of one and I've gained three now. But the Swatch, again, for those that weren't in right at the beginning, I did. This arrived a couple days ago. I wanted a red watch again. So I got this Hong Kong one off Joma Shop. But there's a little scratch damage in the white logo on the strap. Now, I don't really care, but you know what? It was new, so I still reported it. And then they wanted photos, and so I sent the photos. And I told them I don't really want to return it. I mean, it's less than $100. It's like, is there going to be something else? But like the watch itself is fine. It's a part of a logo on the strap. But I figured maybe I could fish for a partial refund, or maybe they have spare straps. Because I think Swatch sells spare straps to these things, and they're just I think a spring bar tool can get those out too. Their guides online. I don't know. I've never owned a Swatch, so I've actually picked up a few watches, more than I would have thought. But by and large, but everything else other than that Swatch has been used. So, and I traded one, and I only had to add a little bit of money to get my Glasuto that I got. I got rid of my Parmesan, my older Tonda, because I wasn't wearing it just as much. And then what was it? And then my Gondolo, which I don't know. I really like that watch. I'm glad I got it, but I didn't trade anything for that. Let's see. Koji asks, is there one movement in your watch collection that you particularly admire, whether design, accuracy, finishing, etc.? Interesting. So my favorite movement aesthetically is the Longa 1 movement, but because Longa does really, really nice finishing on all of their movements. So I like that for the level of finishing. The Gondolo's movement I really like because it's actually shaped. So it's a shaped watch with a shaped movement, and maybe my Reverso I used to have might have been a shaped. I think it is a shaped movement, but you can see it. So I do like that one. It's pretty attractively finished. Well, almost all my dress watches though have attractive finishing. Accuracy wise, no, not particularly. I mean, my Explorer 2 is pretty accurate after I got it serviced. I think this Moser actually is one of my most accurate movements. This one's a really interesting winding experience. Also, I'm really big on movements with a really nice winding experience. The Gondola was stiff at first. It's loosened up now, so it's a better winding experience. The Longa 1 does not have a great winding experience. It's not one I enjoy winding. Even though it's an automatic, the Glasuta is a pretty nice wind. My best wind ever was my Reverso. I don't own it anymore, though. But that was the best hand winding experience I ever had. The Parmigiani I got rid of was a really nice wind. Also, so yeah, I guess so. Longa 1 and the Gondolo are kind of my favorite movements for a couple of aesthetic style reasons, but yeah, I have several watches that are pretty accurate. Tuna asks, so has Trump put more tariffs on China? No, No, it sounds like he's just threatened to. So I didn't catch it yesterday, but it looks like the markets took a bit of a dip because he had indicated he was planning to put more tariffs on. So I'm just speculating that it might have an ultimate impact. Ken says, Dennis, 2 years and no sub. When are you going to realize they're just effing with you and just get it gray? If I cared enough, I would have just got it gray, but I just don't care. So if I really wanted it, it's not a problem for me to, I mean, they're all over the place. Great. You're absolutely right. But it's just not a priority. I bought all sorts of other stuff that I'm wearing. I'm not just like, I don't go to sleep dreaming of it. I've repeatedly thought about just saying, you know what? No, I'm not. Take me off of your list. I'm annoyed. Um, just to stick it to them out of a pettiness to the system. But it's a system that almost all of them play. So it's, again, I don't take it personal or anything. It's just like, okay, I am still fascinated that a company that produces 1 million units of anything a year has models that are hard to get that aren't limited. But good on them. It makes them a lot of money. Okay, Trap. Good morning. Glad you could make it. Cart, M Cart, I should say. I always think of Mario Kart when I see M Cart. What do you think about servicing luxury watches with non-in-house movements at regular watchmakers versus manufacturer servicing? I have a Vacheron Constantin with an FPK. I don't know if I'm saying that word right, so apologies. FPK movement. What should I do? I am all for using an independent watchmaker if you have one that says they could, like, ideally they should be honest with you. So if you I would say just take it in and say, hey, I've got this watch that I'd like to have serviced. It's, they can look at it and tell you, but you could also say it's got this movement in it. Are you willing to do it or not? So another little story time. This wasn't a luxury watch, but I had a vintage, my Spiro Agnew watch, actually. It's a pinlet lever escapement. I took it to the closest area watchmaker, has good reviews online, and his assistant came out, got the watch, walked it back to the watchmaker, came back about 45 seconds later and said, sorry, he will not service these style of movements. So I found another local watchmaker who would, and it was like $200. So in service speak, it was cheap, but the guy was like, this is never going to be accurate. He got it functioning, so it actually worked like I tried to service it myself and I couldn't. It was too difficult. So so that was one story. That same first watchmaker I went to, I had a Zodiac once, and I took it in because I tried to self-regulate it, and the little regulator screw snapped. And so I felt stupid because I bought that watch new, but it was my fault. So I was like, I'll take it to a watchmaker. So I went to that nearest watchmaker. This is the first time I actually went to him, and same sort of thing. Looked at it, and it's like, okay, I don't have the parts to the STP movements that Fossil makes, even though it's essentially a 2824 clone. Nope, he didn't have the stuff for it, and so he wasn't willing to work on it. So your independent watchmaker should be able to tell you. I know I have heard from some vintage watch dealers that for like luxury vintage watches, they only want to use independents, or some have even said, I can't remember which podcast it is. I'd have to look, but I just listened to one episode today, or it was from a while ago, but I listened to it today or yesterday. And they had said that unless the watch is under warranty, they use an independent watchmaker whenever possible. If it's under warranty, then yeah, go, use your warranty, save your money. But independents will usually cost you less. I did use the Rolex AD for my Rolex Explorer 2 when I had it serviced, but the reason I did that was I had read that the Rolex parts were getting harder to find. My understanding is the jeweler I bought mine from, because I noted they're still in business, they would have serviced it as well. I probably should have done a price comparison, but I ended up choosing to get a new crystal in, because my crystal did have some chips in it. I couldn't really see them. And also they replaced the crown. The crown had been damaged. And the watchmaker, though, with my AD was really good to work with. Like he asked me about the polishing and what not to polish. He asked me if I wanted the new crystal and the new crown, and he noted that the 100 meters of water resistance was going to be preserved even if I didn't do it. So those were all just sort of options. But he was just knowing, yeah, there's a flaw there. It's not going to impact your performance. But if you'd like, it's an extra $90 for a new crystal or whatever. It was. It ended up like that. Were the Rolex prices aren't too bad with the official. Like there's like a price list. Everything I think is under $1,000 without part replacement, except the Daytona. I think the Daytona is a little over 1,000. But Rolex watches are super simple. Like this isn't highly complicated stuff. Where I definitely recommend. I don't know what type of Vacheron you've got. Um, Chronographs, I would really consider if you could find an independent, because chronograph servicing costs tend to be pretty high. And other than that, you could just evaluate what the pricing is. But sometimes if it goes back to the manufacturer, they're more keen to do replacements and stuff. So if you're really like hung up, like I don't want my hands changed out, I don't want them to change a crown or whatever. Independents are generally not going to do a single thing to your watch without your permission. Because it's all extra parts they have to get in anyway. So long-winded answer, but I would say yes, absolutely. If you have even if you have an in-house movement, it doesn't hurt to see if you have an area watchmaker that can do it. The skills are the skills. It's not it doesn't make it less authentic to have to have an independent watchmaker do it for you. But especially non-in-house movement, I think your odds of finding one that have access to the parts is pretty high. It's part of the reason why I think some people are kind of frustrated that so many brands went in-house. Etta kind of forced their hand in some ways, but instead of like turning to Sellita, so many like Tudor, for example. I mean, it's a nice movement. Don't get me wrong. I think in the end it made a lot of sense. But if you buy a 1926 from Tudor, you can take that like anywhere and get that serviced. I don't know if that's true for the modern black base. I don't know. So, and even if I know you don't want to spend too much, and I'm big into being frugal. I don't want to have a whole bunch of money lost on servicing costs, but I'm not a huge fan of going in and having a ton spent just because it's the first party. So I would say just look at it never hurts to go and ask like, what's the baseline cost? All the in-house brands should be able to tell you. Like Vacheron should be able to tell you, here's how much it would cost us to baseline just to do the servicing. And if there are other repairs, it's going to add on to it naturally. So, and if you think that price is stupid, then I would say check an independent. The independent will almost always be less. So I would say start with the independents in your case, but I had to give you a long-winded answer because it's a YouTube channel. Tuna says, I must admit that 90% of the crap that I buy day to day is made in China, like the rest of the world, I guess. China has just a massive manufacturing presence. My dad is a retired electrical engineer. He loves ordering circuit boards from China. They are way less expensive than trying to order them in the United States. The craftsmanship, the quality of the work is very good on the boards. There's a failure rate that happens with boards where there's going to be issues, and it's not like they're worse at it. Also, a lot of times the order sizes can be smaller. Some places that produce elsewhere might give you larger minimum order sizes. I remember last week I read that there were some reports coming out that Microsoft had kicked around. They have a third-party like portable. I don't know why I'm doing the thumb thing. I'm trying to do it like a Switch handheld. They had like a portable Xbox handheld that came out in partnership with a company that they announced earlier this year. However, they had planned to do a first-party one. The problem was the chip manufacturer AMD said they wanted a minimum order of 10 million chips that would fit in the device. Guys, the Steam Deck, which is like the most popular handheld that's kind of like this, to work in conjunction with something, not like the Nintendo Switch, sold, I think, 4 million units. Microsoft's not hitting 10 million on a portable Xbox. So they didn't do it because the minimum order was too high. So anyway, yeah, China's got a lot of manufacturing capability in a variety of fronts. And once you don't have the ability, that's where like you have a conversation about the goal of the tariffs and the motivation. And there have been here's my, I'm not an economist. I did take some economics stuff in graduate school, like one whole class, but it was not my focus area. Protecting an industry is easier than bringing an industry back. So tariffs to do protectionist moves kind of can make some sense. The idea that you're going to put in tariffs and then manufacturing will return, in this case to the United States, build factories, train workers, and sell the products. The problem with all three of those things is the tariffs. You have to know that the tariffs will be there forever, essentially, because if you think the tariffs are going away after Trump is no longer president, and newsflash, everybody thinks that, then you are immediately price disadvantaged against China again and you lose. So why would you ever do the initial capital investment for, by the time you got spun up, he's not president anymore. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work the way they want it to. But I mean, it is what it is. It's just math. Trap Vision says, I'm okay with Orient's in-house. I have not, I sold mine before. It didn't need servicing. So I have not had them service it. I've used the Rolex AD. I've had a watch serviced by Shopworn, which is now Solist, whoever they used. Didn't do a great job. They got it right the second time, but that was under warranty. So that's why it was what it was. I've had one watch serviced by one independent watchmaker here in this area. I think I had one other watch, Schwartz Etienne, serviced a movement for Ming for me, and they did do that right. That was the hour hand that was slipping on those, what was it, the 15.09s or whatever. I had one of the Messina Lab collabs, and they did a good job with that, and kept me informed quite well. But that was a really weird issue. I have a whole video about that. So one of those things. Aussie says, video quality looking solid. Well, I didn't mention this part. Okay, so I mentioned at the start of the video. So yesterday was my birthday. I got a new webcam. I have a Logitech. What is it? Do I have the box? I don't remember the name, guys. It's got this. This MX Brio. So it's a 4K, which you're enjoying in beautiful 720p because that's what StreamYard does for the free set. I don't stream enough to need the paid plan. So you get the 4K camera, which because of it's a USB-C cable. So my computer is so old, I only have USB-A ports. So I have a C to A conversion, and it's not fast enough. So it's not converting at 3. I have it plugged into a 3.1 port, but it's not converting at a 3.0 rate. So the Logitech software looks at all of this and says, I'm sorry, Dennis. It doesn't say my name because it's a mean machine and it doesn't care about me. But it would say, I'm sorry, Dennis, but I can't go above 1080p, which is what my old Logitech was. But the quality is way better on this. So I'm glad someone appreciated it, because I thought, you know what? Let's throw it on my list. I was like, I want a better camera. I've been using this 920, which I used to use to stream pinball play fields when I used to Twitch playing pinball games. And so I had that from that back then because it was an affordable way to get 1080p. And so anyway, I have on order another conversion because I ordered some little converters a while ago. I thought they would work for 3.0 USB, and apparently they don't. So I've looked online and I found a whole $10 one for one. That's supposed to have like the bag of 8 for 10. That is supposed to do it. That was confirmed on Reddit to work. So I will try that out and see, because I do another video podcast related to pinball at this point. And that studio, I think, supports 4K. So I thought it would be a surprise if I could get it to work, because both of us are using 1080p cameras. Again, more information than you wanted, but this one being much more fancy, I think it's got better encodings built in and stuff. So anyway, and it seems to focus better. I think it might actually even focus on the watch dial easier and stuff when I hold up things. So I've been impressed so far. I only got it working last night, and then I was like, we're going to try it out on here today. So I'm glad someone appreciated it. Jonah says, actually, Koji, for countless items, the Chinese do a great job at accessible prices. After all, anything made in the UK these days is expensive and classed as luxury goods. And Dennis Conbrio. Yes, Conbrio. Actually, I put down 2 on the list, and so the Brio and the MX Brio, and I forgot I put both down. One was this one's from 2024. The other one was the 2017 version, which works with Windows Hello. I don't know what that is. I think it's a way to sign into Windows. I don't use it, obviously. So the other one goes back. But mistakes for me. Anyway, that is it. I have other things that I am going to work on today. So again, just thought I'd have a rambling stream that wasn't going to go anywhere. I'm glad a few of you joined in and brought up some stuff. I hope you fun listening. I'll plan to have a more structured topic next week. I was planning to maybe have a review of this Swatch watch, but I still need to find out if Jumbo Shop wants me to send this thing back, or if they're going to be like, no, we won't take it back. It's just a watch band, and I would be fine with it. But I'm not wearing it for now in case it needs to go back, because that'd be cheating. I'm not a cheater. So anyway, that is it for this live stream. Hope you all have a really good weekend, and I will talk to you all on the next one. Take care, everybody.